feel like you're just stuck on a hamster wheel? You know the feeling. You get the new phone, you land that promotion, you get the praise you were chasing, and for a minute, it's awesome. But then that feeling just fades, and you're right back where you started, already looking for the next thing. If that quiet, constant feeling of dissatisfaction sounds familiar, well, you are in exactly the right place. Hello and welcome. Today, we're going to dive into an ancient philosophy with some surprisingly practical answers for our modern anxieties. It's called Stoicism. And what we're going to explore is how this 2,000-year-old way of thinking offers a real path to finding lasting freedom. So here's what we've got lined up. First, we're going to diagnose what's called the Modern Materialist Trap. Then, we'll unpack the core Stoic idea that is the absolute key to getting out of it. And finally, I'll walk you through some practical daily exercises to build what the Stoics called an inner fortress, a place of real calm and strength. You ready to look at a different way to live? Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's just sit with this for a second. This feeling of being trapped in a cycle of wanting more, what does that actually feel like? Psychologists have a name for it. They call it the hedonic treadmill, and it goes something like this. You work incredibly hard. You finally reach a goal. Maybe you buy that car you've been dreaming about for years. For the first week, maybe 2, you're on top of the world every time you get behind the wheel. But then, it just becomes normal. It's just your car. And without even realizing it, your brain is already scanning the horizon for the next thing that'll give you that high. The important thing to get here is that this isn't some kind of personal failure. It's a deeply human thing, and it's supercharged by the world we live in today. So what if the answer isn't out there, in the next purchase or the next achievement? What if it's actually in an idea that's been around for over 2,000 years? That's the promise of Stoicism. And we have to clear something up right away. When most of us hear the word Stoic, we picture someone kind of emotionless, right? Just gritting their teeth and bottling everything up. But that's a total misunderstanding. Real Stoicism isn't about suppressing your emotions. It's more like a powerful, practical operating system for your mind. It's a toolkit for finding real, stable happiness. Not someday, but right here, right now, with what you've already got.
All right, so before we can really appreciate the Stoic solution, we've got to get super clear on the problem itself. Let's dig into what we're calling the Modern Materialist Trap. It's this system of values that's all around us all the time. It's so pervasive, it's kind of like fish in water. They don't even know they're wet.
And this trap has a few key features. Just think about it for a minute. From the time we're kids watching cartoons to scrolling through our feeds as adults, we get hit with one core message, over and over. Success means possessions. Your value is somehow connected to the car you drive, the house you live in, the number of likes you get on a picture. And this naturally creates that endless cycle of desire. You get locked into this feeling that if you could just get that one thing, then you'll finally be happy. But there's no finish line, is there? The moment you get there, the goalposts move. And this is so important. That chase doesn't end in peace. It ends in this constant low-grade anxiety. This feeling that you're always behind, always chasing, and never quite enough.
So how in the world do we get out of this trap? Well, the Stoic approach is to completely shift how we think about things and success. They offer a totally different, and I think much more powerful way of looking at it. And this brings us to a really important idea: Stoic materialism. Now, this is a key distinction. For a Stoic, there's nothing wrong with owning nice things. Seriously, you can have a great car, a beautiful home, and still be a total Stoic. The trap isn't the thing itself, it's the attachment to the thing. It's when you start tying your happiness and your sense of self-worth to these external outcomes that ultimately you just can't control. It's that little voice in your head that says, I'll only be happy if I get this promotion, or my life is a failure unless people think I'm successful. That's the moment you hand over your freedom. Yeah, the new phone is a perfect example, right? Let's be real. The happiness you get from it is real, but it's also really short-lived. A few weeks go by, the novelty wears off, and it's just a phone. A Stoic would point out that the phone was never the problem. The real issue, the real source of our stress, was the wanting of the phone before we got it. And then it's the low-key anxiety about scratching it or it becoming obsolete after we have it. See? It's the desire, the attachment that messes with our peace of mind, not the actual object. Okay, this insight right here leads us straight to the single most important, most practical tool in the entire Stoic toolkit:
Honestly, if you only remember one thing from our time together, make it this. It's a ridiculously simple idea with absolutely life-changing results. And it's all about what the Stoics called your circle of control. Now, the fancy term for this is the dichotomy of control. Dichotomy just means splitting something into two parts. And that's exactly what this is. Think of it like a mental filter. Anytime you're stressed about a deadline, about something someone said, about the economy, you just pause and you run it through this one simple question. Is this thing that's worrying me actually inside my complete control, or is it outside of my control? That's it. Just answering that question honestly is the very first step to real freedom. So let's really break this down. Over on the left, you've got everything that's ultimately outside your total control. Things like your wealth, your reputation, what other people think and do. Now, you might see your health on that list and think, wait a minute, I can control my health. And you're right, you can influence it. You can eat well, you can exercise, but you can't command it. An accident or surprise illness is always a possibility. So basing your inner peace on these things, the Stoics said that's like building your house on a fault line. It's just not stable. But now, look over to the right. This is your domain. This is what's inside your control. And notice, these aren't external things. They're internal processes, your opinions, your desires, the judgments you form about things, and your reactions. Someone can't make you angry. They can do something, sure, but your anger is your reaction. This is your inner kingdom, and the Stoics argued this is the only place it's safe to invest your sense of well-being. And this, right here, is the heart of the matter. This is the core promise of Stoicism. Freedom comes from focusing solely on what we can control, our judgments and reactions. Think about how radical that is. It completely flips our definition of freedom. It's not about being able to do whatever you want out in the world. It's an inner freedom. It's the ability to stay calm and clear-headed no matter what the world throws at you. When you really, truly get this on a gut level, you become psychologically unbreakable. That is what real freedom feels like. Okay, so this all sounds great, right? But how does it actually work in real life? When you're stuck in traffic, or you've just had a really rough conversation? Well, Stoicism was never supposed to just be a theory you read about. It's a training regimen for the mind. So let's get super practical. Let's talk about the actual exercises you can start doing today to build that inner fortress we mentioned. We're going to cover 3 main exercises, a kind of workout for your soul. First up is reflecting and writing. Second is a really powerful technique called negative visualization. And third is something called self-denial, or voluntary discomfort. So the first exercise is maybe the easiest one to start with. It's just writing, journaling. You know, the most famous Stoic book ever, Meditations, wasn't even meant to be a book. It was the private journal of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor. He was just writing to himself to sort his own thoughts out. And that's the whole point. It's about creating a space to untangle everything that's going on in your head. At the end of the day, just take a few minutes, write down what happened, how you reacted, and maybe notice where you let things outside your control get to you. You can ask yourself, hey, did I focus on what was in my power today? Doing this consistently is how you build and strengthen that inner fortress, that core of calm that nothing can touch. Okay, our second exercise, it's going to sound a little weird at first, but trust me, it's one of the most powerful things you can do. It's called negative visualization. Basically, you take a moment each day to really vividly imagine losing something you care about. Imagine your job is gone. Imagine a prized possession is lost. Now, the point is absolutely not to make yourself miserable or anxious. It's the exact opposite. This does 2 incredible things. First, it kind of vaccinates you against future loss. It makes you more resilient if something bad does happen. But the real magic is what happens when you're done. When you open your eyes, you're hit with this wave of gratitude for what you actually have, right now. That cup of coffee in your hands, the person sitting across from you, suddenly they're not just there. They feel like precious gifts. This idea of actively practicing satisfaction is summed up perfectly by the Stoic teacher Musonius Rufus, who said, being satisfied with what one has is more beneficial than striving endlessly for wealth. And being satisfied is a skill you can build. That brings us to our third exercise, voluntary discomfort, or what you could call self-denial. Now, this doesn't have to be anything crazy. It can be as simple as taking a cold shower instead of a hot one, or maybe skipping a meal you'd normally eat. The point is not to punish yourself. The point is to prove to your own brain that your happiness doesn't depend on constant comfort. You're teaching yourself through your own experience that you are perfectly fine, maybe even stronger, with a little bit less. It's like a workout for your willpower. So you do these things. You journal, you practice negative visualization, you try a little self-denial. Where does it all lead? What's the end game here? Well, the result of all this training is finding a completely different kind of wealth. It's an inner wealth, something that no one and nothing can ever take away from you. The ultimate aim of all this practice in Stoicism is a state the ancient Greeks called apatheia. Now, that's where we get our word apathy, but it means something totally different. This is so important. It does not mean being an emotional zombie. A better word for it would be tranquility, equanimity. It's a state of mind that's free from all the disturbances of negative emotions. You know, that irrational anger, that panic, that envy. When you clear away all that negative static, you make room for the good stuff to grow. You create space for deep gratitude and a really stable, solid kind of joy. I absolutely love this quote from the Stoic philosopher Seneca because it's so powerful and kind of strange. He said, "True joy is a stern matter." What in the world does that mean, right? Well, he's drawing a huge line in the sand between shallow, flimsy pleasure and deep, resilient joy. That little buzz you get from a shopping trip, that's not a stern matter. It's fragile. It's fleeting. But Stoic joy is stern because it's solid. It's a foundation you've built yourself brick by brick with reason and discipline. It's a kind of happiness that doesn't just crumble the first time things get hard. It's an earned, serious contentment. So let's just pull this all together. What's the real outcome of practicing Stoicism? It's achieving what you could call inner sovereignty. It's about becoming the ruler of your own mind instead of being a slave to every little passion and whim. And that leads to a lasting peace that doesn't depend on what's happening around you. And this is a big one. This doesn't mean you lose your drive or ambition. I mean, think about it. Seneca was a super wealthy advisor. Marcus Aurelius was literally the most powerful man on earth. They show that you can have deep inner peace and be driven to achieve things in the world. The two can absolutely go together. But maybe the most important takeaway is this. It's not a destination. You don't just get Stoicism and you're done. It's a continuous, lifelong practice of getting to know and master yourself. And that leads us to one last thought to leave you with. It's easy to look at all this and think, wow, that sounds like a lot of work. And you're not wrong. It takes effort. But a Stoic might flip that around and ask a different question. What if the real hard work, the truly exhausting thing, is the life many of us are already living? You know, the constant low-level anxiety, the endless chase for more, the frustration over things we have no control over. What if practicing Stoicism isn't about picking up a new burden, but is actually about finally putting a really heavy one down? So there you have it. We've talked about the modern materialist trap. We've unlocked the dichotomy of control. And we've gone through some real exercises you can use to build your own inner peace. Now, I would genuinely love to hear from you. Thinking about that dichotomy of control, what's one thing that is outside your control that you find yourself spending way too much energy on? Let me know in the comments below. I really do love reading what you all have to say. And of course, if you found this useful, giving it a like and subscribing would mean the world. It really helps us out. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next one.